On this episode of China Uncensored, the US becomes China's baby's daddy. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. US-China relations have become, shall we say, more intimate. Chinese couples have been traveling to the US and impregnating American women. Okay, that's a pretty sensational way of saying Chinese couples are using surrogate mothers in the States. A Chinese couple's fertilized eggs is implanted into the surrogate mother, an American, though sometimes it will be the surrogate mother's egg that is used. I'm sure that's done with all kinds of test tubes and Bunsen burners, very tasteful. So this is a growing business. Now, I know the question that's probably on all of your minds right now. How do I get in on the action? I mean, why is this a thing? Why are Chinese couples traveling to the US to use American surrogate mothers? Well, there are a lot of infertile couples in China. According to the Chinese Population Association, about 40 million people in China are infertile. But surrogacy is illegal in China. I mean, think of how confusing that would be. Because of the one-child policy, most people are only allowed to give birth to one kid. So whose kid would that count towards? The couple or the one doing hard labor? See what I did there? Labor can mean both. Anyways, this is another big reason people are doing this. Some people want more than one child, but that's illegal. So what some people do is give birth in the US. The 14th Amendment guarantees the right of citizenship to anyone born in the United States. Bam! A little emperor with citizenship. The kid can't get the usual hukou or household registration in China because they're a second child, but they're US citizens, so they can get a US visa to live with mom and dad back home. And so it's the same thing with this growing surrogacy business. Get a US baby and bring it back to China. And really, it's the American citizenship that's the big draw, because when the kid turns 21, they can apply for green cards for their entire family. Think about that. A lot of people write to me and say, oh, the US is way worse than China, which is a claim I've never tried to make, that the US is better than anywhere else. But it seems like Chinese people are saying the US is better than China. They're giving birth in the US specifically so they can get out of China. What does that tell you? Then there's all the newly wealthy Chinese upper class who are moving their assets offshore, buying up property abroad, and sending their children to study in Western universities. That doesn't sound like people think things are in great shape. It sounds a little more like people are abandoning ship. And as for the so-called naked officials, it's a way out in case the political tides ever turn against them. Didn't work for Bo Xilai. But how common is it for Chinese parents to want to give birth in the US? Well, at least common enough to become the central plot device in a romantic comedy. Finding Mr. Right, released earlier this year, is about a woman set on winning over her boyfriend, who just so happens to be incredibly rich and married to someone else. So when she becomes pregnant with his child, she snags his credit card, goes on a shopping spree, and flies to the US to give birth there, so when she returns to China with a little US citizen, how can he turn her down and not divorce his wife? If that's China's version of a romantic comedy, I'd hate to see a drama. And here's the other benefit. It's cheap. Comparatively. Rich Chinese could apply for an EB-5 visa by investing at least $500,000 in a job-creating business, or they could just have a child born in America. Surrogates are usually paid between $22,000 and $30,000, the surrogacy agency between $17,000 and $20,000, then there are legal fees, prenatal care, delivery fees, airline tickets, and you're looking at only about $300,000 for your ticket to America. China may be the factory of the world, but it's the US that's become the baby factory. Odd source of income for the States. So yeah, comparatively cheap. This is a little out of reach of your average Chinese citizen, especially when you consider that only recently police in Henan rescued 10 children from a baby trafficking ring, and their real parents didn't want them back because they had sold them to the traffickers for the equivalent of 10 years' income. In other words, about $4,000. They didn't want to pick up their kids because they were afraid of losing the money and having to pay fines they couldn't afford for having more than their allotted number of children. And here's where it gets creepy. Male children are preferred in China, and since you can only have one, baby girls don't fare too well. Sex-selective abortion and infanticide are kind of a thing, which is why there are right now 30 million more men in China than there are women. But the beauty of surrogacy is you can choose the gender. Now you don't have to deal with Mother Nature making some stupid mistake like giving you a girl. And now that technology has developed to the point where you can basically have designer babies, a race of Chinese American supermen are being born that will rise to enslave us all. Let me just add that to my list of Armageddon scenarios. So what do you think about this baby mania? Leave your comments below, and if you have your own things you'd like to add to the list of Armageddon scenarios, write them on the China Uncensored Facebook page. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.